Greetings, Purple Sage family. Glad you can join me. I don't know why now the dog across the street decides to bark and the people down the street making noise, and it is what it is. It's life. So this video is going to be, I guess, a little bit different, and then maybe not. I want to talk about life. I want to talk about being young, and I want to talk about getting older. It's amazing how things change over the years. And when I started this leg of my journey, it was, I wanted to let everyone know that you can do better. It doesn't matter how old you are or how young you are, for that matter, but especially how old you are. For those of us who had been on medications and just seeing life in a different way because of what we were told. And I just wanted people to see that it doesn't have to be like we've been told. My biggest thing was to show everyone, especially people my age, especially women, I've said this over and over again, that there is another way. However, life has changed a lot for me. It has changed the way I see a lot of things, especially in the past couple of years. Oh boy, that was a real eye-opener. Yes, it was. And I know I've been trying to help people, especially when it comes to the Skittles, to show that there is a better way and a different way of eating and all of that. My purpose at that time was to show older people how to change and what to do. And I took my, doing herbs and supplements, and these past 2 years, especially this past year, has shown me how this world is not as it started off for me. I've learned that most of the things that I was taught as far as being in the system, for me, it was a lie. I didn't need it. Okay. Y'all hold on with me. I don't know how long this video is going to be. And I don't know about the ones that come after. But the past week or so, the Spirit has placed on me some things to say. And it's gotten where I can't sleep at night. I got to get up and move around, write things down. So if you're here for the ride, just buckle in, get you something nice to drink, maybe a cup of tea, coconut water, whatever you got that's good. And let's just talk a little bit. Now, I've done videos before with my grandson and trying to explain to him about the things that used to be and how I was raised up. But I want to go even deeper than what was on that video or those couple of videos. I was raised in a time when things were simple or more simple. Yes, people were working and trying to make things better for their families. But I want to say this. When I was coming up, you had, and those of you who are in my age bracket and older, you gonna understand what I'm saying. We had, well, I had two pair of shoes, sometimes three. One was for church, one was for going to school, and one was for, being around the house if I chose to. Because most of the time I went barefoot. My feet were always planted on the ground. And I used to get teased a lot and told that I would have big feet because I never wanted to wear shoes. Whenever I came home, whatever I was doing, that was the first thing, kick the shoes off. Whether it was walking in dirt, we didn't have to worry about your feet getting burned on asphalt or crap like that. We walked in the grass. We walked on the dirt because at that time nobody cared about the nice yard. In fact, I was raised in the country. And when I say nice yard, I mean with the lawn and the hedges and all of that. Now, my great-grandmother had a beautiful, beautiful rose garden. And this is the thing. She didn't use all the different fertilizers and stuff that they have in the store now. The only thing I can remember her doing was maybe taking dishwater after we washed the dishes, because we washed them in a big pan, in a big basin. She would take that water and pour it around her flowers. And I think that was mostly to keep the pests off. But in saying that, all of that extra stuff was not necessary. Now, I wasn't old enough to know the ins and outs of raising food and how to do the gardening. But this I do remember during the summers when I would come here to visit. And I'm going to tell you some stories. Like I said, I don't know how many of these I'm going to do or how long, but I just need to put it out there. Okay. We did not buy things from the store. For one, because there were quite a few of us that were taken care of, we didn't buy frivolous things. Not we, my grandparents, my great-grandparents rather, did not spend money on things from the store. Everything we needed was on the land. I can remember my mother's brother. He was the one that was in charge of the planting. Of course, my great-grandparents, which in turn I will call my grandparents because that's who I knew them as at that time. That's a whole nother story. They would tell him what to plant, when to plant it, and what needed to be done. He held down a job. He was actually a master mechanic for the city bus line. But he would get off work, come home, and plow the field, do whatever needed to be done to get the garden out. And we didn't, like I said, we didn't buy food from the store. We had everything everything we needed there on the land. We had fruit trees. There were apples, peaches. I can remember strawberries. We had two different kinds of grapevines, the green grapes and the darker ones. On the land, there was muscadines, there was blackberries, there were plums. Let me tell you about plums. Plums, blackberries. You could find them on just about any country road, anywhere around here. You can't anymore. They've gotten rid of all of that for the sake of development. But at that time, we could walk down the road, and if you got most of the time we weren't hungry because we ate good. That's the other thing. In thinking that we didn't have that much, but now at my age, we were so blessed and we had more. We had time. There was love. There was compassion for people. There was, you had someone, if something was wrong or things were not going well with a neighbor or a family member, there was always somebody to come in to help fill in the gap. Whereas it's different now where people, it's every man for himself, and if you don't get yours, I mean, that's tough. And I can remember being out there and thinking to myself, I don't want to be here. Because the first part of my life, I was raised in the city, in big cities. And at some time I may choose to tell that story. I've always been told I could write a book. But this is the thing. Most of us, couldn't we all? Especially women. Because we're phenomenal. And I know I'm jumping all over the place. Let me get back to telling that part of the story. But it's true. And it's sad that, well, not sad, it's great because at least now I know. Whereas there are some who, they just don't see their worth. Ride with me, okay? Just get in the seat and ride with me. I came from a time when less was more. And I can't say that I had it really bad as far as material things or knowing that I didn't have, or what I thought I didn't have much. It was enough. It was more than enough. Getting back to the garden. In the summertime when I was here, my great grandmother taught me how to cook. And we were taught how to harvest what was planted. We were taught how to freeze certain things and how to can with the mason jars and all of that. And I wasn't interested in that because I thought, why should I have to? That's when things start coming to the supermarket, in the cans. I say that to say this. A lot of things that are given to us as conveniences wind up coming back to bite us because of what you lose trying to chase that convenience. Okay, so now I'm going to have to stop right here. My husband just pulled up with his truck, and he's going to have to get his stuff off of there. So I'll be back. I hope I'm not boring you and you understand what I'm saying right now, or if of interest to you, because we're going to need to know some of these things that I'm going to tell you about my childhood and growing up, we're going to need those things coming pretty soon. But I'll be back. Okay, guys, I'm back. Wow. It's I was only going to be off for a few minutes, but some hours have passed by, so forgive me. I'm just going to start. Again, get in, strap up, and have a seat. I was talking about things that are or are and have been given to us as conveniences, winding up, coming back to bite us in. Okay. I hope you can hear me. I have had turned my fan on because, honey, it is hot as Satan's armpits out here. And I do need a little air. Anyway, simple things. Back in the day, like I said, things were so much easier from a child's perspective. Now, that's where I am right now. I can remember, as a fact of raising, having a garden, raising animals. We had chickens. We also had hogs. And I don't eat pork now. But back then, it was a whole different something because those animals were treated well. They were given good, nourishment. It wasn't something bought from a store or something artificial. They got the remnants of what we ate, everything except the meat. But like the vegetables and the fruit, that's what, if we had watermelon, we, cleaned the watermelon all the way down to the rind. And then we gave them that as a treat. But this is the thing. We had the chickens, which it was my job to feed them in the morning. That was my job. When I don't know if you guys know that chickens who are left and not penned up or closed in like the way that they treat the animals now, they would roost in the woods, because our houses were like in a clearing and all around us was trees. And at night, after the sun not at night, but in the evening after the sun went down, the chickens that were not on nests, they would roost in the trees out in the woods. So in the morning, and they were just like puppies. When they heard me open the door to the well house, and I'll tell you what that is in a minute, but when they heard me open the door, a lot of them would come flying. I could call them. Before I was introduced to the chickens, I did not know that chickens could fly. Yes, they can. Short distance, but they can fly. And that's for those who don't already know. So it was my job to feed the chickens. My brothers, they fed the dogs. We had cats. We had dogs and cats. Each one of the kids had their own dog. And the cats, they kind of, cats kind of choose who they want. And they would come, they would eat in the morning, and then you wouldn't see them no more until over in the evening. They would be off doing whatever they do, just like we did. And my people always, I come from a family of men. I think I've told you guys that before. My grandmother, my great-grandmother came from a very large family with girls and boys. But my grandmother was the only girl. My mother was an only girl. I was an only girl. And we didn't start. Now I have a grandson, which you all have met, but all the rest of them are girls. So we flipped that script, which I hope is going to be a good thing. But getting back, I was taught to do the same things that my brothers were taught to do when it came to how to do simple repairs, how to, just take care of certain things. And they were taught to do things in the house. They were taught how to actually clean up a kitchen, which just does not include washing dishes, which we did by hand because there was no such thing as a dishwasher back then. Dishwashing was manual, yes. You learned how to wipe down the stove. You cleaned off the table. You cleaned off the whole area. You swept the floor in the kitchen and mopped if necessary. That's what you call cleaning the kitchen. And I know a lot of people, maybe a lot of people, but some people, especially with their higher house cleaning services, that's part of it. But we did that every day. So the boys were taught how to wash clothes, how to make a bed, how to make their own bed. That was not my job. Everybody took care of themselves. Now, if we would trade out chores, so there were times when I didn't want to do the outside stuff. So my baby brother and I would always swap out. And if it was, he was a very outdoorsy person. He didn't like to be cooped up in the house. So when it was his turn to do the things in the house, sometimes we would swap out and I would do his stuff and he would do mine. But I said that to say this. A lot of times I see people who think, okay, that's the girl's job, that's the boy's job. No. And I think people, and this is my opinion, and it may be old-fashioned, but this is my story, okay? I do believe that people do their children a disservice. Even though there were people back in my day, and I know one personally, and I'm not gonna say who that is, but I think that they were done a disservice. The guys were taught you got to go out and work on the outside, and everything on the inside is woman's work. One thing I do appreciate from my ancestors, from my great-grandparents, through my mother, she always taught me, and my uncle did too. He taught me how to after I got older and was able to, I had my first car. He taught me how to change my oil. He taught me how to change my own tire and look for things, how to clean my battery cable off, because a lot of times car wouldn't start. It could be because you got corrosion on it, but that's a whole nother something else. But I think it's a disservice to teach children this gender should do this and this gender should do that. Now, I'm not getting into that alphabet thing. That's something else totally different. Right now, I'm just talking about the basics, because what happens in the case of my brothers, what will happen if you didn't have a wife, or you didn't have a girlfriend, or if you had somebody that don't know how to cook, because that did happen to some and still going on. What would you do without having to ask someone for help? Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that there's something wrong with asking for help, but I was taught to be as self-sufficient as possible, but to know when to ask for help. But most times I didn't need it. because I had already been given that background. So we would do our chores. Uh, there was bartering, what is called bartering. Uh, like I said, as far as I know, in what I know now as a, being grown, there was not a lot of money in the household. My uncle was the only one that worked outside the household. Now, let me tell you this. Oh, God. Don't worry about put. Um, the way it was done, I helped my great grandmother kept. I was the oldest of the grandchildren, and I helped to babysit and watch after all the other children. And this is the way it was done. See, they try to make you think that all this stuff is new and people thinking up, different stuff. My people were carpooling before there even was such a word. They didn't even have a word for it. What would happen would be, there would be me and my brothers who were the oldest grandchildren. And like I said, I was actually the oldest of them all. And there would be us three. And then my uncle, he had two kids. They were little people. I don't want to say maybe 4, 5, 6. They weren't very old. And then we had some cousins who my grandmother also kept during the day while their parents worked. And this is how it went. My uncle, the cousins would come to our house, drop off the children, and then get in the car with my uncle. His wife and one of the cousins and her mother worked at the hospital. So what he did was to take them, drop them off at the hospital, and then he went to his job as a mechanic at the city bus station. And then in the evening, when all that was, when everybody was getting off work, they waited outside for him to come pick them up, drive back down to the country. Cousins picked up their children. Or if someone who from their family would come and pick up the kids. And then tomorrow we do it all over again. Now this is the thing. We lived in the country, as I said, and when I say in the country, we were, I want to say, almost 20 miles outside of the city. So that was, let's say, 40 miles round trip every day. Now this was Monday through Friday. Now the ones, I don't remember them working on the weekends. I know the hospital was still running. I don't know how that worked. I don't remember that part, so I'm not going to try to make up something. But that happened Monday through Friday. And then on Saturday, there wasn't work to go to outside the home. Then you did things. This is my uncle, would do things around the house, whether it was something out in the garden or working on vehicles or a tractor or just whatever. But this is the other thing. Remember, I said at that time we didn't have all this grass and hedges and da 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 da. It was dirt. But people had pride in what they had, even though it didn't seem like a whole lot. They had something that was called brush brooms that somebody made from the limbs of small trees. They bent them and tied them together so that they could be used to sweep the dirt. Because if somebody came by on Sunday, you couldn't have all the dust and the I guess rocks and stuff that were out of place and that type of. You might say that's just crazy. Why would you sweep dirt? But it looked so much different when it was done. Everything was just level and clean and beautiful. And they took pride in that. And when we got old enough to be able to do it, we did it. Okay? It was just the simple things. And before, okay, I did come from a time that had what they call outhouses. Now listen, when I came to live here, I didn't have to go through some of the hard part like some people who may not have been in the same place my people were, or maybe older before the conveniences were there. We had an inside bathroom, but way back in the back near the tree line, there was an outhouse. So, and instead of us, because we didn't run in and out of the house, we didn't play that. You go outside, that's where you be. In the city, you go outside, that's where you are until the street lights come on, okay? Street light come on, you better have your butt at the house. But in the country, instead of running in every time you had to go to the bathroom, we go to our house, okay? And I know some people may say, ooh, I couldn't do that. Yeah, you could. And time's coming where you're going to have to do it again. Mark my word. At that time, people didn't have we had running water in the house. But there were some people who didn't have running water. All they had was either water from the creek, or if they were lucky enough like we were, the water did not come from the city. This water came from a well that was drilled. You probably heard me talk about how sweet and cool the water was. And it just tasted so good. We didn't have to pay a water bill. Well, not we. I keep saying we like I was grown. I wasn't grown. They didn't have to pay a water bill because the water was free. It came out of the ground. Okay? We had lights, but now there are times when we used kerosene lamps. We also used candles. And that was in order to keep the bill at a certain level, because they knew, they budgeted back when that wasn't even a word. They knew what they had to spend. My great-grandmother did not work outside of the house. My great-grandfather was a blind man. And he was the one who got me into the herbs and self-healing and that kind of thing. The things that he taught me when I was a child, little did I know that they would come in handy in this part of my life. And I'm so grateful for him. Like I said before, I'm standing on broad shoulders from the people before me, my ancestors, who are now my ancestors. I was blessed to have them for a really short time. But even when I thought I wasn't paying attention, I was. So I'm saying the way things were done manually. There was no there was not a machine to do all these things. Now, we were lucky enough to have a well pump at my great grandfather's house, but there were some people who had to actually put the bucket down in the well, and then turn the handle to bring it back up, and then you transported it to something else and used it for in the house. And this is the thing too. There was a lot. People were more respectful of nature. They were more respectful of waste. You didn't waste anything. And if you were found to be wasting, and I'm talking about as a child, you got a good talking to, and you might have got your honey kind of tanned a little bit if you continued the bad behavior. Okay, we learn to respect animals, and I guess that's why I have a great love for all animals. I ain't got nothing for little things that don't have no legs. You know what I mean? I have nothing for them. But other critters, I have a friend. My sister from another mister, she calls me Miss Doolittle, because even here, animals that don't belong to us, sometimes they just come through, and because they know it's a safe haven. And some of them are wild, and some of them are domestic, whether it be cats. I don't have any dogs through here right now. We got groundhogs. I can't tell you the birds and the squirrels. We have a couple of owls that are out there, and hawks. Just beautiful things that I kind of took for granted for a while, that I'm seeing now again for the first time, and I'm remembering to ground, like I told you, with my take your shoes off, walk out in the grass. It's amazing some of the things that we take for granted that are destined at some point, because of the powers that be, that we won't be able to enjoy anymore. And this, there are a lot of folk who we've been spoiled. People move to the city for jobs. And even though I'm telling you about the good things as far as in my family at my house, I did come up in the era where the color of my skin, and it's still there, but at that time, sometimes it was a whole lot worse. There were times when I moved here to stay, I didn't know about racism. I didn't know how people in certain places treated other people because of who they were. I was in the north at that time, and I lived in a very diverse neighborhood. And during this time, I'm talking about in the 60s. there there were people from just about every ethnic group possible that went to school at my elementary school and even on into junior high. And we were taught much differently. We were taught things that would make the difference in life, like culture. That's what they called it. I never will forget, I had a teacher who, her hair was always in place. She was beautiful. At some point, she could have been a model, I guess, if that was the thing. All of the teachers who looked like me, they cared about whether we were learning, and not just learning the curriculum, but that we were learning about life. They brought life exercises into the classroom. At that time, there was, but again, they separated the boys from the girls, where the boys would go to shop, whether it was to work on woodworking. I think that was part of it. It was woodworking, carpentry, working on motors, because most cars were the thing back in the day. But just working on motors, whether they be large or small, and that was for the fellas. And then the girls, you took housekeeping. And this, you were taught how to balance a budget. You were taught how to and doing that, know how to buy your grocery and still have some to sit to the side. Because look, people worked all during the week, but baby, on Friday evening, folk think they be turning up now. They ain't know nothing about it. They didn't. They didn't. But, and it was all, you didn't hear about anybody getting shot or cut unless they was messing with somebody else's woman. Nah. But we were taught how to pretty much survive with the minimal amount of whatever you had. Again, I only had, like I said, at the most maybe 3 pair of shoes. And you didn't wear your good stuff to be playing around in. On my Sunday shoes, just like my brothers had to shine their shoes and polish and shine their shoes, I had also shined my shoes. Whether it was the patent leather or what. We took pride in how we looked. And even though it wasn't high fashion, they always made sure that the kids were clean, your clothes were clean, and there was no, I won't say there was no, because there's always somebody out there, but there was not a lot of people who thought they were better than anybody else, because everybody was struggling in that I could see to make it. And they believed in uplifting each other and helping. Like I said, whenever something, we didn't have a whole lot. And I can remember my great-grandmother she had a couple of sisters who had children, but their men didn't step up to the plate as they should. I'm not downing nobody. All I know is what I saw. I don't know the reasons for any of that. I'm just giving you a scenario. We didn't have a whole lot, but she would share whether it was flour to make biscuits or flour, all the fixings, because everybody ate biscuits, okay? And they were homemade. They didn't come out of the refrigerated section, didn't come out the freezer section. In fact, at our house, biscuits were cooked 3 times a day. For breakfast, lunchtime, which they call dinner time, and in the evening, which there was called, I called it dinner, they called it supper, but I digress. My great-grandfather would not eat store-bought bread, not if he didn't have to. I ain't gonna say he wouldn't eat it, but he preferred not. So we made the biscuits. And because my uncle was the breadwinner for his house and for us, my great-grandparents, which were his grandparents, my great-grandmother always made sure, because we would normally eat before he got off from work. But when I made biscuits, or she made biscuits, there was always something called a hoe cake. It was about like this. And everybody knew not to touch that because that was his. There was always food set aside for him so that he would be fed and healthy and able to go back and forth to work. But, okay, getting back to my great-grandmother helping others. The sisters, she would share what she had with her sisters. We also had a neighbor who was on kind of hard times at some point. And there was always enough to give. You know, we didn't, can't hold that. I'm holding this for hard times. No, you shared. If I have, you have. If they have, I have. Now, I'm not saying we could do that with everybody, but people were closer. They cared about what happened to themselves and the people who were closest to them and their neighbors. There were, we had chickens. So my grandmother would take eggs to another lady who had a cow. We got butter and milk from her for the eggs. And that's what people did because, again, there was compassion and love for one another. Okay, I'm going to stop again. This one is a little bit longer. This one, I kind of get carried away. But again, like I said, I hope you hoes stay on for the ride. I'll be back with some more later. Won't be too much later because the sun is going down, getting ready to go down. And it's going to be dark back here. So, and people are coming home and the animals are doing what they do. But anyway, I'll be back.